When you wake up with a sudden fever today, your first instinct is to pull away. You cancel your plans, retreat to a bedroom, pull the covers up to your chin, stare at a glowing screen, and try not to breathe on anyone. It is an almost mechanical response, an ingrained modern etiquette born from the age of microscopic awareness. We assume this sudden urge to distance ourselves is a product of modern education, a triumph of germ theory and public health campaigns. But how did ancient humans, living tens of thousands of years before the invention of the microscope, survive unseen pathogens that could wipe out an entire bloodline in a matter of days? Step back 50,000 years. The world is vast, unforgiving, and mostly dark. There are no pharmacies, no sterile hospitals, no concepts of bacteria, antibodies, or viral load. Survival is a daily physical negotiation with a landscape that wants to kill you. You feel the dampness of the earth beneath your bare feet, the sudden drop in temperature before a storm, the shifting winds carrying the scent of predators. Early humans were not the bumbling, club-dragging primitives of cartoon stereotypes. They were hyper-observant survivalists with an emotional intelligence forged in the crucible of absolute vulnerability. They had to be. Death was not hidden away in sanitized wards. It was a daily companion. A hunter returns lethargic, coughing, their skin unusually hot. In a world without medicine, sickness is a profound, terrifying mystery. It strikes invisibly, jumping from body to body like a phantom fire. How do they react to a modern mind analyzing history through the cold lens of Darwinian logic? The prehistoric response seems obvious. Abandon the infected, leave them to the elements. Survival of the fittest dictates that the tribe must cut its losses to protect the healthy. Anthropologists digging through Pleistocene ash and bone have uncovered something that defies our darkest assumptions about human nature. It begins with something evolutionary biologists call the behavioral immune system. Long before we knew what viruses were, evolution gifted early humans a biological radar for infection. It is the reason the smell of rotting meat makes you instantly gag. It is why we feel a sudden, visceral aversion to open sores, strange rashes, or erratic, sickly behavior. Neuroscientists have mapped this invisible defense mechanism. When we witness someone coughing violently, our brain's insular cortex, the center of disgust, but also of empathy, lights up like a warning beacon. Our bodies secretly prepare an immune response just by looking at someone who is unwell. Ancient humans did not need a microscope. Their bodies knew the virus was there. They felt the danger in their gut, the evolutionary pressure to run away, to isolate, to let the sick die for the sake of the tribe must have been overwhelming, and yet they didn't run. In a cavern in Iraq called Shanidar Cave, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Neanderthal man known today as Shanidar I. He lived roughly 45,000 years ago. His skeleton tells a brutal, agonizing story. He had a crushed eye socket that likely left him blind in one eye, a severed right arm amputated above the elbow, and severe degenerative arthritis in his legs. He was deaf in one ear. In the harsh, freezing reality of the Ice Age, a man with these catastrophic injuries should not have survived a single week. But his bones show that these wounds healed. He lived for years, perhaps decades, after his trauma. He could not hunt. He could not defend the tribe. In a world of brutal mathematics, he was a total liability. But he lived because his people fed him, chewed his tough food for him, and carried him. This was not a bizarre exception. Across the globe, from the healed femurs found in early Homo sapiens to the carefully arranged medicinal plants discovered in ancient burial sites, the archaeological record screams one undeniable fact. When sickness and injury struck, early humans felt the biological terror of the pathogen, yet they chose to defy their own survival instincts. They moved closer. They cared for their infected. We look at these ancient bones and we marvel at their primitive empathy. We feel a warm sense of pride for our ancestors. But looking at them is actually looking into a mirror, and the reflection is terrifying. Think about the last time you were truly sick. Not just a mild cold, but the kind of sickness that keeps you trapped in bed for days. The physical pain, the chills, the fever, that was only half the battle. The other half was the crushing silence. You ordered soup through an app specifically to avoid making eye contact with a delivery driver. You texted your family to assure them you were fine so they wouldn't worry or visit. You lay there, scrolling through endless feeds of other people living their vibrant lives, trapped in a sterile. We have built the most medically advanced civilization in the history of the universe. We have mapped the genome of deadly viruses in a matter of days. We can synthesize vaccines, transplant organs, and eradicate ancient plagues. But in the process of building this medical utopia, we have fundamentally stripped away the one thing our ancestors knew was the actual cure for the trauma of illness: profound physical communal presence. We treat sickness as an administrative error, a temporary pause in our economic productivity. We hide it. We are ashamed of it. We isolate ourselves not just to protect others from our germs, but because modern society has absolutely no space for vulnerability. We have replaced the warmth of the fire, the murmurs of the tribe, and the physical touch of a caretaker with the cold glow of a smartphone, a plastic bottle of pills, and a locked door. And your body knows it. It feels the absence. Modern neurobiology has revealed a fascinating, slightly tragic truth about how the human immune system actually functions in the dark. When you are sick, your body initiates a massive inflammatory response to fight off the invading virus. But researchers studying the genomics of human social behavior have found that our immune cells are deeply, molecularly sensitive to our psychological states, particularly to the feeling of loneliness. When we feel socially isolated, our nervous system perceives it as a fundamental, existential threat to our survival. The brain triggers what is known as a conserved transcriptional response to adversity. It ramps up systemic inflammation and actively suppresses our antiviral defenses. The very isolation we impose on ourselves to be responsible, independent citizens actually makes our immune systems less effective at fighting off the viral infection. Alternatively, physical touch, proximity, and the simple feeling of being watched over release a cascade of oxytocin and endorphins in the brain. These chemicals do not just make us feel emotionally better. They actively reduce stress hormones, lower heart rates, and regulate the immune response, preventing it from damaging our own tissues. When ancient humans sat by the fire, holding the dirt-stained hand of a feverish tribe member, wiping their brow with cool water, and staying awake in the dangerous dark to watch them breathe, they were not just providing emotional support. They were administering a profound biological medicine. Their physical presence was literally altering the immune expression inside the sick person's DNA. They did not know the molecular biology of a virus, but they understood the neurobiology of healing infinitely better than we do today. We have gained the world. We can see the invisible. We can defeat microscopic monsters that would have erased ancient cities. We live longer, cleaner, and incredibly safer lives. But in our relentless, obsessive pursuit of a perfectly sterile world, we have quarantined our own humanity. We forgot that we are a species born in the freezing cold, whose greatest survival mechanism was never the sharpened spear, or the mastery of fire, or even the sheer power of the human intellect. Our greatest weapon was the stubborn refusal to let another human suffer alone. Today we fight the virus, but we surrender to the isolation. We lie in our warm, safe, perfectly sanitized beds, surrounded by technology that can instantly connect us to the entire globe, yet we have never been further apart. For most of human history, healing was something you shared, not something you survived.